All right, let's just jump right into it. Welcome to today's explainer, designed specifically for the really focused learner who is absolutely ready to break through their operational ceilings. If you're tuning in, you've likely already conquered the foundational levels of business, right? You've mastered high-ticket offer design, you've perfected your closing mechanics, and you've built a predictable, highly profitable cash flow engine. Basically, you have the momentum. But as you look toward that next massive horizon, you start to realize something crucial. The exact tactics that got you to this point absolutely will not carry you forward. So today, we're analyzing the source material on how to construct the ultimate 8-figure architecture, one that's capable of scaling to infinite capacity. So, here's the ultimate question. Why do so many incredibly successful entrepreneurs completely hit a wall when trying to cross that bridge into 8 figures? You'd think hitting 7 figures means it's time to pop the champagne, but for most founders, rapid scaling actually just breaks the business. It introduces this hidden, insidious friction that destroys profit margins, makes free time completely vanish, and just burns out founders who are desperately trying to manage a chaotic, rapidly expanding team. To figure out how to overcome this, we're going to break down today's blueprint step by step. We'll start with 1, the complexity trap, 2, infrastructure decoupling, 3, capital reallocation, 4, sovereign governance, and 5, absolute economic sovereignty. Section 1, the complexity trap. Okay, so here is the real bottleneck. We call it the complexity trap. Basically, most businesses fail at this stage because they scale their operational complexity right alongside their revenue. Just picture a founder completely drowning in endless Slack messages, dealing with stalled server infrastructures, and watching their operational overhead just explode. The true elite understand a really fundamental truth here. Simply working harder, putting in way more hours, or endlessly hiring an army of staff, that's the wrong approach. You're really just building a larger, much more fragile machine. Think about the doomed correlation in a lower-tier system. Making more money literally triggers an exponential, crushing explosion in operational costs. If your revenue growth is constantly chasing, or frankly being chased by, an operational overhead explosion, your profit margins are going to continually shrink the bigger you get. You end up managing this massive, stressful entity that actually yields less and less true freedom. And no one wants that, right? So how do we actually break this trap? Well, we have to engineer a totally new structure. The infinite capacity blueprint is built on 3 main structural pillars, required to build an 8-figure architecture with absolute zero friction. Those are infrastructure decoupling, capital reallocation, and sovereign governance. Section 2, infrastructure decoupling. Let's look at the standard, lower-tier model first. It is completely labor-bound. If you sign 10 times more clients, well, you suddenly need 10 times more time, energy, and management overhead. It's just a linear trap. Now, contrast that with the infinite capacity model. This one is code-driven. Achieving true scale means you have to replace manual human operational delivery with proprietary software pipelines, custom AI agents, and asynchronous delivery assets. Your business literally has to be structured so that processing 100 clients or 10,000 clients requires the exact same amount of personal oversight from you. Because when your core distribution is driven by automated code instead of manual human labor, something almost magical happens. Your profit margins actually expand as you scale. This is the absolute game changer of decoupling. It frees up massive amounts of capital and personal bandwidth, which you can then relentlessly redirect into market domination and asset accumulation. Moving right along to Section 3, capital reallocation. Now, at the 7-figure level, your cash flow is probably mostly funding your personal lifestyle, right? But at the 8-figure level, everything changes. You transition from being an active operator to a sovereign capital allocator. You have to realize that paper contracts and digital bank balances are often just third-party IOU notes, stuff that can literally be censored, restricted, or targeted during a financial crisis. To counter this vulnerability, your cash flow has to become corporate energy. You need to automatically route profits into unconfiscatable hard asset classes. We're talking decentralized sovereign property, high-yield digital nodes, strategic equity in software platforms, and high-ticket real estate debt instruments. There's this fantastic quote from the source material that says, "Your business becomes a primary engine that feeds a massive, uncancelable holding entity." And that just hits the nail on the head. Listen, generating wealth takes a ton of aggression and vision, but protecting it, that requires extreme paranoia and serious risk management. You are essentially building an underlying hard asset fortress so that these layered assets just continue to generate passive, compounding yield, totally regardless of localized economic disruptions, systemic bank failures, or crazy geopolitical shifts. Which brings us to Section 4, Sovereign Governance. So, as your net worth accelerates, you enter what is arguably the most critical phase of all, wealth preservation. As we said, protecting wealth requires extreme structural insulation. If you keep your physical presence, your citizenship, your business entities, and your capital reserves all locked tightly inside one single country, you're creating a catastrophic single point of failure. The true elite utilize something called jurisdictional uncoupling. You sever the connection between where you live, where you operate, and where your capital is actually stored. To completely protect those assets, this sovereign entity uses cryptographic and physical cold storage. This means taking direct, non-custodial ownership of digital property secured in multi-signature cold storage hardware wallets, right alongside audited physical hard assets kept safely inside non-bank private security vaults across highly stable sovereign nations. The end result of all this architecture? You become technologically uncancelable, operationally automated, and financially bulletproof. How? Primarily through an asset separation trust framework. The golden rule of the global elite is actually pretty simple. Own absolutely nothing in your personal name, but control everything through sovereign legal frameworks. By utilizing asset protection trusts, foundations, and holding companies, external liabilities just cannot penetrate your financial fortress. Because you personally own zero attachable assets, your legacy remains fully secure and entirely under your generational control. Finally, Section 5, Absolute Economic Sovereignty. We arrive at this incredibly powerful directive from the material. Step into the matrix of infinite leverage, deploy your architecture, and claim your absolute freedom. The complete cycle of wealth creation, system automation, global leverage, and sovereign asset protection, it's all been completely decoded for us here. You no longer have to just be a participant trapped in a fragile, dependent financial system. You can build your way out. So, I want to leave you with one final thought to really chew on today. Will you stay trapped in the complexity of lower-tier scaling, just endlessly battling overhead and systemic vulnerabilities? Or are you going to deploy these structural pillars, break your own bottlenecks, and lock down an unhackable financial fortress? The blueprint is literally right here in your hands. Now it's time to build.